game, 8 o'clock. It's going to be electric. Our guys are going to be excited about this.
Electric it will be. A first ever December playoff game inside the shoe under the lights. Good evening and welcome to a special mini edition of the Football Fever. Not that many when you have Jay Richardson next to you. I'm Dave Holmes. Kellyanne Stitz will join us in just a moment. Jay, as we expected all week, Buckeyes play Tennessee. Now official. Your reaction to the Buckeyes and the Volunteers?
Very, very excited for the Buckeyes. Very, very excited at how things shook up for the playoffs as a whole. I thought the committee actually got it right. But when you talk about Tennessee coming up north to the shoe, first night game of the season for Ohio State, you couldn't be more excited. I hope this crowd is going to be into it because this is a fantastic football game. This will be the game that everyone's going to be watching. It is the most competitive game of all the semifinal matchups. It's the biggest game with two of the biggest brands. And Dave, I'm nervous. I already have butterflies about this game because we know that this is going to be a serious, serious matchup. The offensive line for Tennessee, the defensive line for Tennessee versus Ohio State's kind of offensive line. We'll see who's going to be available, who's going to be healthy. There's a lot to really look forward to. But at the end of the day, Ohio State has one more opportunity in the shoe to make things right.
Well, Ohio State head coach Ryan Day now has something to focus on after last week's letdown against Michigan. I sense today that Ryan almost seemed to officially turn the page now that the playoff is here. And you might remember, last time the Buckeyes made the playoffs, they faced Georgia. Here's Ryan Day once again facing an SEC team in the playoffs.
It's a great matchup against two teams that really don't get to play each other very much, two great brands in the playoffs. And I think when you look at, when you looked ahead a few years ago, like this is the type of game that you're like, okay, this could be a great environment against two very good teams.
Our own Kellyanne Stitz is an Ohio gal, but she actually covered these Tennessee Volunteers for almost 3 years in Knoxville. Kellyanne, first off, burn all your orange clothes this week. And then, what can you tell us about this Volunteer offense?
I knew you were going to troll me on Tennessee orange, so I strategically made sure to wear green to support my MAC champion Ohio Bobcats and promote unbiased coverage. But looking at this Tennessee team, they come to the shoe with a 10-2 record with losses to Georgia and an upset by Arkansas, but their biggest win of the season by far was beating Alabama. But the Vols are led by quarterback Nico Iamaleava in his first year as the full-time starter. But Nico's best game was their last one against Vandy. He completed 18 of 26 passes for 257 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Now, Josh Heupel is known for his up-tempo offenses. His first season, they played so fast, but they've adjusted with Nico and in game situations. They still do run tempo, but Heupel says every game has its own identity. Nico is technically a dual threat and can get it done with his feet, but they haven't really utilized his run game as much with their offensive line questions. But the star on Tennessee's offense, by far, is running back Dylan Sampson. He's the SEC Player of the Year, ranked 8th nationally in rushing yards and 6th in total touchdowns. He carries a load for the Vols, 256 carries alone, compared to Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, who have both combined for 255 carries this season for Ohio State. Sampson has over 1,400 total rushing yards. He averages nearly 6 yards a carry and leads the team with 22 touchdowns. It'll be key to slow him down.
Kellyanne, I know a lot of people are concerned about that Tennessee defensive line, especially against the Buckeyes' makeshift offensive line. So what kind of challenge awaits Chip Kelly and Will Howard?
Yeah, Ryan Day said he started projecting who they would play early last week, and he already started scouting Tennessee, and he mentioned that they are a complementary team. But I've got friends in low places, and me and my media friends in Knoxville have been talking about this matchup for the past week, and they agreed that the strong suit of Tennessee this season is their defense, and that starts up front. On the D-line, the leader is James Pierce Jr. coming off the edge. He's a first-round NFL talent. He leads UT with 7.5 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, and he gets a lot of pressure on the quarterback. The Bucs O-line will have their hands full with Tennessee's defensive front. And looking in that secondary, Oregon State transfer Dermod McCoy is the star. He's a lockdown corner with 4 interceptions, 9 passes broken up, and 39 tackles this season. But he'll be tasked with handling Zone 6.
A primetime game on December 21st. Too early to know the forecast, but my best guess is cold. How much of a home field advantage do you expect for this game against Tennessee?
A huge home field advantage. Ohio State earned the opportunity to host its first ever playoff game at the Shoe, and the college football playoff is only allotting 3,500 tickets for Vol fans to travel. And look, guys, it is tough to play at Neyland Stadium. It's built up so fans are on top of you, and it gets really loud, deafening at times on third down. And when I told folks that I was from Ohio, they immediately told me just how much they did not like Ohio State. It's only a 6-hour drive here. They have a passionate fan base. I'm sure that 3,000 or so group will bring the energy. And speaking of that home field advantage is the weather. That's the other talking point. Now, look, it does get cold in Knoxville. My first year there, they had an unprecedented amount of snow, but the Vols never played in a snow game. It's
Great stuff from Kellyanne. As always, Jay, so much has been made about SEC teams coming up north to play in the cold weather. I could argue that with Ohio State's offensive line issues, are the Buckeyes even a cold weather team at this point? So does weather play a role in this game?
Big time. I think wind plays as much of a role as the temperature itself. It'll be around 38 to 40 degrees. You would think right away, oh, that benefits the Buckeyes. But when you really watch Tennessee, and you've been in Nashville, you've been down the area, it gets kind of chilly down there too. So I don't know who that really benefits. I think it's how Ohio State chooses to attack Tennessee, which I hope is using all of those amazing skill positions, which is why I kind of hope it's not as windy and not as ugly weather-wise.
Good defensive line on Tennessee, good running game on Tennessee. Tell me the comp is not the team I think it is. Who do they remind you of?
Come on, Dave.
Who do they remind you of?
Us of? Tennessee is built a lot like Michigan. That
cut
team
his
up
mic.
north.
Cut his mic.
And that's what makes me a little bit concerned. But at the same time, I am inspired, Dave, because we just saw that a few weeks ago.
It's true.
And we know exactly what not to do. So perhaps Ohio State will switch things up, roll the dice, and get something going.
Well, hey, they're not blue, they're orange. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape. These two teams pretty evenly matched, both in the top 20 in scoring offense and top 5 in scoring defense. Tennessee likes to run the ball, averaging over 230 yards a game on the ground. Ohio State leads in the passing attack, averaging more than 250 per contest. Fun matchup, and we will be here leading you all the way up to kickoff. Isabel?